Hey guys, so it's Robert again, and I know it's been a couple days. We've just been really busy, and I know we left off on a little like cliffhanger kind of thing. I took my check ride on the 18th, and I'm happy to say that I passed. We got it done. Thanks to God. Everything went well. But this video was just going kind of over of what happened during the check ride, what did I do, and what were the thoughts going through my head. So obviously, when you're doing a check ride, a DP comes from a different place, and you book a spot with them, and you do an oral portion and you do a flight portion. So later on in the video, we're gonna go over the plates or the approaches I did, and what the check rider asked of me to do, and what I needed to complete. But right now we're gonna focus on the oral part, which was it was pretty interesting. I was a little nervous, I'm not gonna lie. Some of the questions I had to look up in the forum, use the resources I had, make sure that I was saying the right thing. But a lot of the questions were on. So usually before you take the check ride, you take a knowledge test, and with the knowledge test, you have to get at least a 70% to pass. And I missed a couple, and those are the questions that really focused that the DP was really focused on. And so he started off with that. I made a flight plan from a certain airport in Idaho, which was his designated airport, his home airport, and he wanted me to do the lowest and the closest and the fastest route. And it was pretty tough because one of the tricks that he wanted me to do, or that he was trying to get me on, was that there's no approaches, no departures, no nothing. It's literally a paved road that's a runway, and that's it. And obviously the way you would take off from there would be a diverse departure. And from there, we were just going over certain small things. He was asking me a couple questions, and he was asking me like my limitations, cloud clearances, weather minimums, telling me, give me a lot of scenarios. I noticed now too that a lot of DPs have moved from just asking questions to, they don't just want the straight answer. They want to give you a scenario, and you give them a reason why or how you'd answer it and where you pull the information from. So it's good to study the forum, know which part you're going from or what section you can get that answer from. Make sure you study FAA documents. A lot of pilots use ForeFlight. A lot of good documents on ForeFlight, like the PHAC or the POH. Make sure that you know certain things about it. And overall, it was about an hour and a half. About oral, we would get some lunch. He was sitting down asking me questions. I was trying to eat my food. It was really difficult to enjoy my food while he was talking to me. I was getting a little nervous, but overall, it was good. The relief was over when he said, "All right, let's get your headset and let's go fly." And I was like, "All right, this is over. Now it's on to the flight," which is more procedural, so a little bit easier. But if you mess up on something, then it's over. So then we're gonna show you a quick clip. I'm gonna be voicing over some of the plates we went over. So we did a VOR approach, a GPS approach, and then an ILS to come back. So in the next clip, we'll be showing you the breakdown, what he asked of me, and how I went through it. And yeah, so we're instrument rated now. The airport we're taking off would be KBFL, which is somewhere like down here. So somewhere right there. And then when we depart, and then as the way it goes, we go straight to Shafter, and then we contact approach, and then approach either they just confirm that they heard our recording, or they clear us for the approach, for the practice approach. So then on the check ride, what I did was, you're obviously on the VORs, so you have the Shafter VOR plugged in, and on your second VOR you have the Thule. So on these two VORs, you're able to cross-check where you're at, just in case the DP tells you, "Oh, you don't have your GPS. How do you know where you're at? How do you know when you reach the point?" And then you also have the DME, which is 11.3. So then we're trying to get to is Juddy, which is our initial approach fix. So obviously on the ground, before we even take off, I brief the approach. Easiest way to do instead of doing it in the air, because it's really close and you want to get it out the way. So obviously we're doing the VOR 32 into Delano. Our AWAS is 119.55. Base for approach is 118.9. Los Angeles Center is 127.1. And then our CTAF is going to be 122.8. We won't switch to our CTAF until approach clears us for frequency change approved, so not yet. And then obviously our VR is 115.4. Final approach course is 322, as you can see right here. And then we'll have our initial approach fix, which would be at Juddy, 2000. Our MDA, or minimum descent altitude, would be 860. And then airport elevation is 316. And then touchdown zone is 315. So you also have to brief the missed approach. So you climb right to 2000 inbound via Shafter VOR, radio 322 to Jetty intercept and hold. But for this check ride, he wanted to do a little different, the DPE. So he told me he'd do an alternate missed approach because he wanted to make it the most efficient. So obviously, we get to Shafter VOR and we're cleared by ATC. So we're at 2000, and as you can see there, if we're coming from this angle, there's no procedure turn. So we'd come in, and as soon as I crossed over the VR, I would tune in to 322, go straight, and just level off at 2000. And then for the purpose of the check ride, one of the things besides the approaches and then the usual attitudes is you need to do a hold. So first off, we did a direct hold, pretty simple. Started off at Jetty. As soon as I did that, I started turning, 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 turning. As soon as we're aligned, that's when we start our minute timer. Minute timer goes all the way until we hit another minute, and then we start turning one last time. And at that point, he knew that I could do a hold, and he was like, all right, time to start the VR approach. So before that, obviously you have to set up, make sure you do before landing checklist, and make sure that you set 10 degrees of flaps under 110 knots. You're just getting ready before you start the approach. So then once you hit Juddy or land point 3, you have to also make sure to have that timer ready, because that's going to be a key thing. As a VOR approach, you want to make sure you have that timer, and they could fail you on that because that's one of the things you need to have. So when you start going, make sure there's no step downs. Sometimes there's step downs here that you need to watch out for. Luckily for this one, there wasn't. Everything was good. We're going down. Once we hit the 16.6 DME, that's when he told me to do the alternate miss approach, which was just fly runway heading and climb to 2000, and then contact approach and request vectors to our next point to start the GPS approach, which would be the shafter, the GPS 1-2. So for this one, we're coming from the east, or the west, I would say, my bad, and we want vectors direct to pond. That'd be our initial approach fix. So then on the way there, once ATC has cleared me and they told me I could do the next approach, I would need the 1 minute weather and I'd brief the approach. Same thing. 121.125 on the AWAS, 126.45 on the approach. Los Angeles Center is 127.1 and our CTAF is 122.9. Our final approach course is 120. At Stingray would be our 2000, and then our DA or decision altitude is 663, airport elevation is 425, and touchdown is 413. And then our missed approach is climb to 3000 direct to Tipev and track the 199 to Merrick and hold. But for this one, we also wanted to see a circle to land. So we look down here, and with our local altimeter settings, our MDA is 900. So coming in from the initial approach fix, we're at pond. We're at 2000. Everything's looking good. We turn to JetLu, and remember, this is GPS, so it'll tell you a couple seconds before, oh, turn to this heading, which is 120. We keep going, make sure we have before landing checklist. We have the weather, which we got from 121.125, and then once we have our frequency change approved, we switch to 122.9, and then we let Shafter know where we're at, because most of the times here the wind is we're getting a tailwind coming from runway 1-2, so usually a lot of the VFR or other pilots are coming in on 30, so this side, so we have to let them know where we're going and what we're doing. So usually you don't want to say, oh, I'm doing the GPS approach, because there could be student pilots or private pilots who don't know the terminology just yet. So what you want to do is tell them, oh, we're 10 nautical miles northwest coming in for runway 30. We'll be joining the downwind. So we're coming in, and right here was actually pretty interesting because that's where he gave me an AHARS failure. So I had that, and I was flying partial panel at that time. So we're coming in. Once you hit, you have to make sure, like I said, make sure there's no step down. So here there is a step down at Scissor. It's 900. So you have to make sure you watch out for that. Don't bust that minimum. And then once we got down to 900 and we were good, and he says runways in sight, but we're doing a circular land, you stay at 900. Remember, it doesn't go any lower than that. It doesn't go to the 663 anymore. Since you're doing a circular land, it's 900. So remember, you want to stay 1.3 miles around from the runway, and you're doing a circle land. So you're not doing any sharp turns. So you're turning around, turning, while also making your call saying you're on the downwind, you're on the base, you're on the final. And then once we touched down, he saw that we did a circular land, and he said, all right, 5 runway heading. So he took off, and he vectored me up to 3,000, heading one. He sent me towards the west actually. So we basically flew out and climbed up to 3,000, which then led us to our last approach, which is the ILS. So ILS 30 right. So at this time we were kind of leaving Shafter, coming up here, and once we talked to ATC and we told them that we wanted to do the ILS 30 right, we got vectored basically climbing to 3,000 and coming down. And what they want to do is set you up for the ILS, and usually they set you up and they turn you, and you go a little bit before JUPIX because JUPIX is your initial approach fix, and you want to be able to set up and make sure you have the ILS set up and everything. So like before, got to brief the approach. So briefing the approach is perfect when you have a lot of time. Make sure you don't leave it to the last minute. Just get out the way. And then 127.1 for Los Angeles Center. CTAF is 118.9, ground is 121.7, the ILS is 111.9, final approach course is 301, JUPEX you have to be at 2,500 feet, and then our DA or decision altitude is 698. Airport elevation is 510, and touchdown zone is 493. And you also brief the missed approach, climb to 1,000, then climb right, turn to 3,000 on the Shafter VOR radio 145, direct to Shafter VOR and hold. Continue climb and hold to 3,000 or directed by ATC. And then we look down here again, our DA is 698. So once we were lined up, I had to set the plane ready with 10 degrees of flaps before landing checklist and under 110. And once we passed JUPIX, or JUPIX was just be a sign, but once we have that, once we hit the prescribed altitude, sorry about that. Once we have that prescribed altitude, we have to make sure that we don't have no scale deflection, and we just follow the glide slope down. And it was actually kind of bumpy, but luckily everything went well. And once we touched down, that's when he told me, we really like your flying and everything's good. Just get me back to the taxi without no harm done, and we'll go print out your certificate. And that was basically it for the flight. This particular DPE was more invested into the actual flight. He wanted to see that I didn't bust any minimums. I kept my altitude. I didn't deviate. I was able to go off just the instruments, partial panel, and then some unusual attitudes. So he was pretty strict on that stuff. And it was a little nerve-wracking, I'm not going to lie. But overall, I had a solid flight, and I really enjoyed it. Alright guys, well that concludes the video of the instrument check ride. Finally it's over, now it's time to go on to commercial. But yeah, follow, like, and subscribe. Flight Level Development, we'll be dropping videos every single week, starting off with the ACS, starting off with the private. So yeah, make sure to follow us, and we'll be dropping videos at the end of every week.